Let me ask you something. What if you were standing in front of a firing squad, just seconds from death, and then, at the last possible moment, you were spared? How would you see the world after that? Well, this isn't just a thought experiment. It actually happened to the Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky, and it completely forged his mind into something that saw the world like nobody else. So let's dive into what he saw.
He was only 28 years old. He gets sentenced to death just for being part of a literary group. So there he is, standing in the freezing cold, listening to his death sentence, watching as his friends are tied to the sticks. By his own account, he had maybe a minute left to live, and then a messenger rides in with a pardon from the Tsar. It was a mock execution, a cruel joke. But it wasn't just some dramatic event in his life. It became the single defining lens through which he saw absolutely everything about being human.
That one moment, being suspended between life and death, it just burned away everything that didn't matter. It forced him to confront the biggest questions head-on, and it led him to an obsession with one single core concept: the radical, honestly terrifying, and beautiful nature of human freedom.
Okay, so when Dostoevsky talks about freedom, he's not talking about politics or the right to vote. No, he's digging into something way deeper, something existential. For him, this is the very foundation of what it even means to be a person.
For Dostoevsky, this is what real freedom is. It's not about having a bunch of good options to choose from. It's the radical, often totally irrational power to choose anything. The power to pick something that's completely against your own well-being, just to prove you're not a cog in a machine, just to prove your next move can't be predicted by some formula. This, he believed, is a power we can never really give away, no matter how hard we try.
And this right here is Dostoevsky's central paradox. Freedom is our greatest gift. It's where all meaning, all real love comes from. But it's also a crushing weight. The responsibility of having to choose who you are, what you believe, how you live. He thought that was a burden so terrifyingly heavy that most of us spend our entire lives just desperately trying to run away from it.
Which brings us to the big question, right? Why? If freedom is the very thing that makes us human, why on earth would we run from it? To answer that, Dostoevsky created one of the most unforgettable characters in all of literature, a man who is the perfect embodiment of this exact struggle.
Dostoevsky, way back then, diagnosed this uniquely modern sickness, this feeling of being trapped inside your own head, completely paralyzed by the sheer weight of your own thoughts. He calls this character the Underground Man. He's this former bureaucrat just holed up in his miserable basement, writing these bitter, rambling notes. And the crazy thing is, even though this was written way back in 1864, this guy is a shockingly accurate picture of modern anxiety, of alienation, of what we now call overthinking.
See, the underground man's problem is that he's too smart for his own good. He's way too self-aware. Before he can do anything, he's already thought of 100 reasons why he shouldn't. If he feels an emotion, say anger, he immediately starts analyzing it until the real feeling just evaporates. He's become a total stranger to himself. And in the end, he actively chooses to be miserable, just to prove that no law of nature or logic can force him to be happy.
Think about that. He would rather choose suffering on his own terms than have happiness forced on him by someone else. This is the ultimate, if twisted, expression of that radical freedom we were talking about. The freedom to choose pain, just to prove you have a choice at all.
Dostoevsky actually gave this condition a name, hyperconsciousness. It's what happens when our ability to think becomes so powerful that it turns into a cage. It's that feeling of knowing everything, seeing all the angles, and yet being completely unable to act. It's the analysis paralysis that so many of us feel today, and he nailed it a century and a half ago.
So Dostoevsky saw this anxiety, and he saw society starting to offer up some very dangerous, easy answers to escape the burden of freedom. And he warned us about two of them in particular.
The first one was this idea that pure logic and reason could fix all of humanity's problems. I mean, this was the great hope of the 19th century. But Dostoevsky saw it as a really dangerous illusion, and he brought this idea to life through the main character in his masterpiece, Crime and Punishment.
So, this character, Raskolnikov, he's a brilliant student, and he cooks up this purely rational theory. He figures, hey, killing this cruel old pawnbroker and using her money for good deeds is a logical, almost mathematical, net positive for the world. On paper, the logic seems kind of sound. But after he does it, his perfect theory just shatters against the reality of his own soul. It's not the police that destroy him, it's his own guilt. And it proves that a human being is so much more than just a rational machine.
Now, the second cure, and maybe the one that's even more tempting, is the offer to trade our terrifying freedom for comfort, for security, for happiness. He explores this in a legendary chapter of the Brothers Karamazov called The Grand Inquisitor.
In the story, Jesus comes back to Earth and is immediately arrested by the Grand Inquisitor. And the Inquisitor tells him, look, offering humanity freedom was your great mistake. People don't want it. They can't handle it. They want to be fed. They want certainty. They want someone to tell them what to do. The Inquisitor basically says, we fixed your work. We took their freedom, and in return, we gave them happiness. And the terrifying point is that people will gladly trade the heavy burden of choice for the comfort of just being told what to do.
So if reason is not the answer, and trading our freedom for comfort is a trap, what's left? What's Dostoevsky's solution? Well, it's not an easy one. In fact, it's the very thing our modern world tries so hard to avoid. Think about it. Our culture sees pain as a problem to be fixed, like right now. It's a sign that something is wrong. We've got pills and therapies and endless distractions to get rid of any and all discomfort. But Dostoevsky saw it completely differently. He believed that some kinds of suffering don't just break you, they forge you. They strip away your illusions and open up your soul to a much deeper reality. He thought that without facing pain, a person just remains shallow, incomplete.
Ultimately, Dostoevsky's solution isn't another grand theory or some complex philosophical argument. It's something simple, something practical, and something incredibly difficult. Active love. And we're not talking about a romantic feeling here. We're talking about a conscious, compassionate choice to care for the person right in front of you, without judgment.
This whole idea is summed up by this wise monk, Father Zosima. Now, this isn't about feeling guilty. It's about feeling connected. It's the ultimate expression of real freedom, freely choosing to accept responsibility not just for your own life, but for the well-being of others, too. It's choosing connection over isolation, compassion over theory. And for Dostoevsky, this is how we can actually bear the weight of our own freedom.
Which leaves us with a really tough question for our own time. In a world that is filled with more comforts, more distractions, and more easy answers than Dostoevsky could have ever dreamed of, have we ended up following the Grand Inquisitor's path? Have we, in our constant search for happiness and security, quietly traded away the difficult, terrifying, and magnificent burden of being truly free?